wonderful.
It's a Friday.
It is a Friday.
It's my birthday. In 2 days.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, did I misjudge that? No.
No.
Yes.
I mean, it's the week, so it counts. So,
yes.
You know, by the time this is out, it'll have been like a week or two. So that's okay.
Assuming the editor can get the edit done in time.
Yeah. Assuming the editor can stick to the schedule this time, and you know, not faff about.
Assuming the editor doesn't quit.
Imagine. Anyway.
Well, it might depend on how this video goes. Maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, speaking of drama, let's talk about what movie we're reviewing here today, which is Don't Worry, Darling, a movie that has been steeped in drama in, out, and around the film itself.
It's like everyone involved with this film, either who, you know, was in front of the camera, behind the camera, the people writing about it, the people had to watch it. We were all worrying.
General plot is, you know, beautiful 50s paradise, but there's something else going on beneath the surface. What's your one-word review, Rob?
Effort.
Yeah.
Which could be interpreted many ways.
Yeah, and I'm a bit worried about how it's going to be interpreted. Well, my one-word review is hostage, which caused you so much pain when I sent you
Well, that could be interpreted many ways. I was like thinking, are you saying that someone in the story is held hostage, or were you being held hostage by this movie? It's many things.
Many reasons. Well, we're about to find out, and I am so worried. I think we're going to say the word worried a lot, but
I think you should go first because I went first last time.
Did you?
With Bullet Train, yeah.
Oh, damn it. Okay, fine. I've seen this movie twice, and it's because it's. I'm just going to get this out of the way. I don't think it's that much of a spoiler to say it's a high concept sci-fi, because I think going in, you know that it's got like something like that of its nature. And whenever I see a high concept sci-fi that has this sort of like, it's a metaphor storylines, if it's done even reasonably well, I will want to go see it again, because I need to, now understanding the context, watch the whole thing from the top to the bottom. And I will say the second viewing really did it for me. Like, it was so much better the second time around. The small things I was able to pick up on, the way the story was told, it also went a lot faster. All that said, I liked it. It is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. There are so many questions, but I'll stop talking. For the love of God, Rob, put me out of my misery.
Yeah, now, I think, sadly,
oh no,
I've had the opposite experience.
Oh no!
I was interested while watching it.
Okay.
As soon as I finished it, I was like, all right, well, that definitely wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. Mm-hmm. And then upon the second viewing, it actually didn't illuminate anything I didn't already figure out on the first viewing. So it actually got worse for me.
Interesting.
And again, I wouldn't say I hated this film, because that's always the question. Did you hate this movie?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hate it. I was quite disappointed though.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd gone that far in watching any trailers, or I just knew that it was like, you know, what I'd heard was psychological kind of horror set in the 1950s.
Okay.
Right? And I think within minutes...
You figured out that it wasn't?
No, I figured out exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
Like within minutes, I think we're in spoiler territory now.
Yeah.
Within minutes, I was like, okay, this is going to be a simulation run by all the men and all the...
No way you knew it was a simulation.
No, you can ask my partner, first viewing, as soon as we were like getting into just establishing what was going on in that first few minutes, it was like it was as soon as all the men drove off to work to the Victory Project in their cars at the beginning, my partner and I looked at each other and we were like, we whispered each other in the cinema, this is like a simulation. Ask her. We both figured it out within minutes, and I can explain how that is. Nearly every single time we've seen something set in this 1950s suburban Americana environment that is really laying on thick about how nice and perfect everything is, 30 years of film and TV have basically trained the viewer to immediately know there's more going on here. We figured it was a simulation because they tipped their hat a little too soon. The first quick one frame flash happens within that time period. Okay, and it's clear enough that you can see her eyes being pried open like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, but
okay, and immediately we both looked at each other and we were like, "This is a simulation." We're like, yeah. You know, it was because it was all too neat. It was like all the wives at home, they're all waving as the cars drive off, the men all go to work, and like the women are so clearly being oppressed and subjugated, but are like in this kind of haze of like, this is the perfect little life. And we're
but couldn't that have been like they've literally been kidnapped and put into a model village? You know what I mean? Like, why did it have to? Your brain went straight to simulation.
My brain went straight to simulation. Guy's brain went straight to simulation, and we figured the reasons why.
I would say you're the minority. I didn't crank on to simulation straight away, but I also wasn't looking for it.
I wasn't looking for it. The film, I think it tipped its hat way too early. It did such it did such a templated job of having that sort of everything's not as it seems suburban Americana vibe that I could immediately just pick up on it and be like, oh, okay, well, this isn't going to be hard to dissect, and it wasn't. And that's part of what made the rest of the film not as enjoyable for me as I wanted it to.
I actually had two very different viewing experiences too, purely based on who I went to see it with. First time, I went to see it with just my partner. I love him, I respect him, I think he's an excellent guy. He didn't like it all that much because he felt that it was a bit of a stretch, everything that was happening in it. That it was like, this would never happen, guys don't act like that, blah, 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 right? The second time, I went to go see it with a group of female friends. And that was a much more positive experience all around, where they all really liked it and were thinking about it. And so that made me think, similar to Promising Young Woman, She-Hulk, these sort of pieces of content that are coming out now, they're not being made for people like you. Obviously, like, I'm not saying that, oh, you're a man, so you didn't get it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, similarly with She-Hulk and Promising Young Woman, even if you did get it, it still wasn't a film that was catered towards you as a specific audience. Exactly. Yeah. Like, sometimes films are made for very specific audience types, right? And I have noticed this trend of like, no, we're going to ignore the male gaze and we're going purely in the female gaze. And that has been happening more and more. And obviously because of that, there's been a lot of upset in recent times, which we've
very silly.
Very silly, yeah. And obviously most people like yourself and my partner and, you know, most normal human beings are able to recognize that and be like, you know, oh, I like it. Oh, I don't like it, even if it's not made for you.
For context, I think Bridesmaids is a better film than The Hangover. Yeah. And they're often compared to each other.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good example. Because of my gender and my position in the world as a woman, I feel like there are definitely elements where maybe if I'd seen it in a piece of content made for the male gaze, I would be less forgiving. While in this case, I'm more forgiving, especially on a rewatch. So that is also me like calling out my own bias, which is absolutely present.
I'm not blind to the thematic, systemic discussion points that Don't Worry Darling is bringing up. I recognize them and I wanted them to be able to flesh it out in a satisfying way. It's revealed later in the film, as I'd figured out very early, that it's a simulation where the Victory Project is run by Frank, Chris Pine, and he is basically created this online community of essentially incels, somebody who's so put out by the freedoms that women have in today's world that they resent women because of it. So that all made sense to me, but I think the reason why the metaphor didn't stick the landing for me is when I'm looking at how it's explained to actually be happening in the film. That's where I have some problems, because I thought, okay, Harry Styles' character, Jack, we established that he's unemployed, he's kind of a bit of a hobo, and Alice, Florence Pugh's character,
which
Alice.
Can I just real quick tangent? For the love of God, Hollywood, I'm speaking to you. Hollywood, Britain, whoever it is making movies, stop fucking calling your characters Alice when they are either evil, insane, or being taken down a world of gaslighting, awfulness, hallucinogenic terror.
You do know why, though, don't you?
Yes, because Alice in Wonderland. I know why.
Okay.
But it's
I just
always
mansplained
Alice.
her accidentally.
I know why. And it's so frustrating frustrating. I just want once for there to be a strong female character whose name is Alice. It never happens because it's always, it's a character. Let's call her Alice because Alice in Wonderland. Fucking genius. Oh, you're brilliant. That's never been done before. Except it's always been done. Even look at House of Dragons with Alicent. It's always the bitchy, awful, evil ones or the crazy, gaslighting, traumatized ones. Anyway.
So it's like she's like a surgical nurse or a surgeon, and yeah, like she's coming home super tired, always working. It's established then that Jack, he's being resentful of the fact that she's basically the breadwinner, right? So he agrees to be part of this victory project where you're going to have your woman of choice, essentially, tied to the bed and then in this fantasy land, right? But they literally say in the movie, you know, if you agree to be part of the victory project, you will be, you know, responsible for...
Is this going to relate to your one-word review?
Yes. Yeah. you will be responsible for, like, you know, making sure she's fed and her eyes have moisture in them and that so he's having to like put drops in her eyes and put water in her mouth and
massage
like
her arms.
Move her bed sores around and probably clean her, you know. And as well, he later yells at her saying how much he's slaving at his job to pay for all this. I'm like, okay, so he was unemployed a minute ago, now he has a job. And I'm just thinking, how is the life that you've now put yourself in any fucking better than what you were before, when you had your partner actually awake and attentive and working, and you weren't having to, you know, work 12-hour days at some God knows what job you've all of a sudden got, and then having to like basically be a carer to a comatose person for the rest of your life. And then you're also scrimping through whatever money you make from this job that just he randomly acquires to get... At that point, I'm like, the logic of how you're explaining this plot element even exists in your movie is making it hard for me to even enjoy the metaphor, because when you take the metaphor away and you kind of, on the surface level of just how the mechanics of the story work, I'm like thinking, this doesn't make any sense to me. Right. It's not the metaphor of the incels and the analysis of the incel culture. I get it. Good job, movie. The way at which it's delivering all of that is not making any sense, because all the plot elements they throw in there seem to either confuse it more or not even explain it and kind of fly in the face of the motivation itself. And and that's when I was finding it hard to believe that this, you know, doll bludger or whatever you want to call it, doll bludger, like would even go to this amount of effort.
So everything you just said, you're correct. It is illogical. It is irrational. It makes no sense. But so does the concept of the incel make no sense. So to that point, everything you said, it is so much more effort. I fully agree. The reason why he would witness this as a better alternative to what we're seeing now, or to what we saw in the past, is because of control. He has to do all of that. This is the core, this is the crux of the incel and the alpha male culture right now. They want full control over their females. That's what all the messaging says. That's what all the angry posts say. That's what the entire thesis of their community, for lack of a better word, is. Again, to a logical person, it would be a fucking pain in the ass to have to do all that stuff, keep her on the IV, clean her up. But he also gets to get the woman, the woman who had completely emasculated him in his eyes, and he gets to control her. He says when she eats, he says when she sleeps. He has twisted her mind so that she has to love him. He's completely in control of her, and there's nothing that she can do about it.
When looking at how the film is structured, it's like pretty much most of it is just Alice having these weird occurrences happen to her, which are all metaphorical for feeling closed in and trapped, and putting the wrap around her face and the walls crushing her, all this weird ass shit. And then you get to the third act, it reveals that it's a simulation, and then we are rushed to the finish. So I hesitate to think that anyone even who put all this effort into those performances and their character motivations actually feels like it made it into the final cut, because I don't think it did. And I want to see it in the final cut. That's the thing. I want to see a longer version of this movie. I want to see a 2.5-hour version of this movie, because I think that would make it a masterpiece, honestly.
I think you need to be a person who has been a victim of this, even just by being the gender in which it is, like, showing the experience of through Florence Pugh, being a woman in any way, to fully get it. This is what I meant at the start by this wasn't made for you. I think it wasn't necessarily like this isn't made for men. I think it was this is made for women. But all that said, I have plenty of problems with the story. For example, what the fuck was up with Gemma Chan stabbing Chris Pine at the end?
I wanted to bring that up because this goes into another thing about why I say the plot elements contradicting each other is because all these big moments occur not because they made sense for the movie that was happening, but it made sense based on, well, this is where that moment in films happen. I guess I generally do just have this philosophy in most cases, 9 times out of 10, that it doesn't matter what a film is about or what perspective it's taking, it should be able to put the viewer into the mindset of whatever perspective it is taking. Like, as an example, Get Out, which is one of the fucking best movies of the last 10 years. Get Out discusses its perspective on how African American people feel about certain aspects of racism.
Nice white people.
Yeah.
Nice.
In a way that would never have crossed my mind. And I saw that film like, oh my God, I've learned something entirely new about someone's, position in life. This film, if I'm going to compare it to Get Out, and it's a high bar to clear, but if I compare it to Get Out, I'm like, this film didn't successfully put me into feeling the perspective it wanted me to feel, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that we're kind of saying the same thing, just from 2 different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Because I agree.
Like, we thought the same of the movie. It's just like one of us is from that perspective.
Exactly.
And one's not.
So I think if you're from that perspective, this movie is it's a much easier pill to swallow, because you don't have to do the work, because I am a woman and I experience that every day.
And I want the film to do the work for me.
Yeah, that's kind of it, isn't it? What we're saying is, if you're not a woman, you might not enjoy it as much. Is what it is.
And it's got nothing to do with the fact that, like, oh, does this film hate men? No, it doesn't.
It's just, I think this is a film that you require the gendered experience.
Yeah.
And that's not hate on you not being that gender. To be honest, it's not even necessarily the gendered experience, just not the male experience. Like, specifically, not the men, not be a man.
I still believe that, if the film was all the way good, it would have been able to make me understand.
I agree. I fully agree.
Because I can't
a shining treasure.
Yeah, I can't say that it was successful in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can't say it was a successful piece of filmmaking for that reason.
So with that, let's do it. We've got plenty of content.
Pull the Band-Aid off. Yes, let's get to the rating.
I said my thoughts first, so you can give your rating first.
Okay.
Rob, put up our rating. We know it well. Cold trash to shining treasure. We know it's not a shining treasure, but where does it land for you?
I wanted so badly for this to be a hot soup.
Yeah.
But
no, I knew that wasn't going to be
like, because I was looking forward to this movie, as I mentioned. I was really giving it everything I could while watching it. I appreciate all of what it does attempt, and again, I maintain that when and if a director's cut comes out, I will be the first one in line. I will be just as excited as I was the day I walked into the cinema, because I want to see the longer version with more.
Which I agree. I think that there's like, I was like, oh, that could have been an extra half hour.
Yeah. But as it stands, the movie we have today, I cannot do anything else than a hot garbage.
Oh, thank God. All right.
Yeah. That's a thank God.
I was really worried you'd land on cold trash.
No, hot garbage. It's hot garbage.
That's fine, because it sucks at Christmas for me. So So it's I'm a bit worried. How many times have we ended up here?
This would be the 3rd time I think we've ended up here. I don't remember what we called this. Garbage socks?
I think it's garbage socks.
I think it was
I
garbage
think our last
socks.
movie was garbage. No, it wasn't.
It was Thor
Thor. I think
Ragnarok.
Thor landed there
It did.
as well, and I think that's garbage socks.
It's garbage socks.
Garbage socks.
Yep. That's what
I'm
it is.
sorry.
I'm sorry. But look, again, give me a director's cut.
And look, I didn't land on Hot Soup either. I don't think it's a solid 7.5, or 7, really. It depends what day I'm on. But this is, when I walked out of this movie, everyone was like, what did you think? What did you think? What did you think? And all of my responses were, I think I liked it, ? Because I was so, after that first viewing especially, I was so embroiled in essentially having an inner turmoil between the themes and the actual film I watched. We didn't even talk about how good Florence Pugh was. She was amazing.
Yeah, at least give her a nomination.
She was Midsommar level of. I would say it's a very similar performance to a Midsommar performance, just on a different scale, obviously. But both times she's just crazy shit's happening, and she's kind of the victim of it all.
I think, for context, okay, Midsommar is a movie that. When I watched it, I thought this film is brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted, brilliantly written, knows thematically what it's doing,
and I never
doesn't put a foot wrong, but I hate it with every fiber of my being, and I never want to watch it again.
Yeah.
But is it a good movie? Sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, this one is on the other side, but I feel like I'm the same in that. I mean, I don't really want to sit down and watch it again. That was a lot going on there, but I'd watch this one again. But Florence Pugh, if there's one thing you take away from this, even though we didn't talk about it at all, she was fucking amazing. Oh my god,
Agreed.
I love her. Give her all the awards. She will get one eventually. But anyway,
that's it from us today.
Thanks for taking a break with Clean Slate. Look at that, you stayed for this one.
I glued myself to the chair.